here, buddy. I'm going to do the intro for you first right here.
All right.
I'll read this as best I can. I had some coffee, so I'm a little bit better right now. Okay, Chris Wyatt, he's been dealing with the Ozark Chinquapin since the 1960s. And the chestnut blight came through in the 1950s and killed all the large Ozark Chinquapin trees that were abundant before the blight. The blight decreased the amount of food for people and wildlife. And Chris is currently employed by the Arkansas Department of Agriculture, Division of Arkansas Forestry for 32 years. It's 33 now, I believe. When he was growing up, his dad was a logger. He spent a lot of time in the woods. And the older generations told him about the Ozark Chinquapin when they were loggers. They were a whole lot larger trees, 2 to 3 feet diameter. Chris said he thinks the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation is on the right track. He better. He's one of our board members. No bias there whatsoever. They have several chestnut blight resistant trees that are 100% pure Ozark Chinquapin tree in the restoration plots. Chris believes that some financial assistance with the Ozark Chinquapin tree can be used to restore to many states. And let's see if I got a cut off on that. Let's see, it grew before the chestnut blight came along, and this will be a long-term project, Chris says, but he thinks it will happen. So on his background, he has an education BS degree in forest management from University of Arkansas at Monticello, fall of 1980. And so we're glad to have him here with us, and just appreciate you. Thank you, buddy. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. My presentation may seem kind of weak after these high-powered speakers, but I missed old guy out there in the brush. A lot of the trees, one of the guys here earlier talked to, gave us a lead on some Chinquapins we're going to go check out. And loggers and hunters and people that beat the brush is the kind of guys I like to deal with there. A lot of these slides, I got from 2 years ago, about half of these slides from 2 years ago, and I got some new ones inserted in there. All right, one of my main goals today is to get you to have more success in growing your Chinquapins. If they get you money, we get you $30, you get 5 or 6 seeds. I'd like for all of them to grow, but from my experience, they're not going to all make it, but we can hopefully pick up your production here. If you look there, of this survey that was sent out last fall, half the people got 1 or 0 trees growing out of, I think it was 6 seeds last year. Well, you can see down there 6 seeds. That's kind of a bummer, you know. I think it burns you out. They think, man, that's impossible to grow. No, they're not, but they're kind of, a few things I can tell you here will hopefully help you out a little bit. One of the big things is water. Chinquapins can take it, but any tree you plant the first year, they're really susceptible to going belly up. So I know in the future when we start doing acres and acres, the water is really not going to be be able to happen. But then, by then we'll have enough seeds. You plant what you got, next year go back in and fill in the holes. Most of my experience is dealing with 3 plots. I've helped with a lot of little plantings, but mainly three locations in 3 counties. One plot's got 102 tubes, one's got 69, and one's got 40. And the 102 tubes, we done that in 3 different years to get up to 102 tubes. And we've had a lot die. One thing, we got lazy for a while. We go back and plant a seed in the same spot. If it didn't work the first time, it probably ain't going to work the second time. We try to move it a little bit. We kind of had them in rows so we can kind of, keep it going better. But don't get lazy. Pull your rebar out, which could be bionic, wedging these rocks like we got. So I'd like to get you up there to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And look here, 9 people, they said they got 6. One of my sons that Robert knows and Lori works at Game and Fish, he said he knows one guy that gets 80 to 100% of his trees growing every year. But he thought he watered them every day. Every day, he must not have a job or nothing. But anyway, I want to encourage you to do a few things here that'll pick up. Here's some of the things. If you only own 1 acre, you probably ain't got near as many options. Soil type, aspect, security. We've had people that's actually trying to steal our stuff. look at access and the depth of rock. So if you got 40 acres even, say, you can move around, there'll be a lot of variation in just a small area. What kind of soil you got? Whatever you grow, it depends on what kind of soil you got. If you're trying to grow corn or trying to grow possums or, whatever. But you need to know what kind of production you're going to get out of it. You think, I ain't got an old timey. This right here is probably about 1982 model or something. So I'll show you a little more modern way to get soil types. Right here's some stuff out of that soil book. This in Carroll County here. Clarksville's a well-drained soil. That'd be good Chinquapin ground. Nixa, look at that. So this nose right there is about 150,000 acres out of 405,000 acres in the county. But there's some spots, even on the good soil type, they'll be a lot better than others. Look at that, 20 to 50% slope. So you maybe park goat might help out if you're climbing 50% slopes. Natural fertility of this soil is low. You'd never thought it in Arkansas, would you? Permeability, moderately rapid. Pour out 5-gallon bucket of water, it'd just be a short time, it'll be all gone. Droughty, not suited for cultivation. Seedling mortality is severe. I would say that 50% of those people we mail seeds to, they'd agree, yeah, that's really severe. All right, if you know about side index, a white oak on this Clarksville soil is about 55 feet high at 50 years, so that ain't real rapid growth. And this would be some of the dominant trees on that site. One good thing about it, that's made for Chinquapin soil. All right, here you don't have a soil book. Look on the Web Soil Survey. It'll tell you about most everything that's in that book. Right here, look at that. See any dirt? You just see rocks and gravel. That's kind of what Clarksville is. All right, this will help you out a little on water. Put you some mulch around that. Every little bit adds up. Right here's a plot. It's in Carroll County here. It's a few years back. Water. Spraying for bugs. I've thought about this different times, how seedlings lived when they was drought like this year is pretty dry. I talked to a guy here a while back from National Weather Service out of Little Rock. He said, I don't know if this is for Little Rock or what part of the state, he said 9 years above normal precinct. It goes back to normal or below, it's going to be dramatic here. It's kind of dry to me. This right here is supposed to be good, supposed to be able to spray it and eat your apples the same day, but like a lady said there, good to have some kind of predator to help eat your bugs. But I'm thinking what happened in the old days when they had so many Chinquapins in a good year, there was millions of seeds you got going. The second year on any kind of seed is way more likely to survive 2-year-olds than one that's planted from seed. If you can get a few years in there and get established, you got a good start on it. Not saying it won't die later. I've had that happen. That's kind of a bad deal, but I'll show you a picture in a little bit. Right here's looking down a tube, June 18th, about 6 inches tall, just a guess. That's pretty good for, that's 2 or 3 years back. There's part of the plot. This old guy here, you'll see a hat or a ink pen here after a while. All right. This first year we did 38 tubes in this Carroll County, and they was 32 of them lived. Well, that's pretty good. And they varied from 3 to 36 inches tall. Some of these years we had a lot of seeds, we put 2 seeds in a tube. I really don't think that's a good idea. Because what it is later, when you got them both growing, you got to get rid of one. And they're real close together. These tubes are, small. They're about 4-inch diameter max probably. probably gonna damage that other one. So I really go for one. If it don't make it, go back in and fill it in the next year. Median height 12 inches. I thought that's kind of bad then, but I don't know this year. Probably I don't think they'd be that much this year, not on the plots we're dealing with. 7 was 24 inches or taller. All right, right here is after 2 growing seasons. The original trees, 26 are alive, so they're 68% alive after 2 years. Median height 52 inches. Usually the first year getting established is not 12, 15 inches high, it's about the ones we're dealing with. The second year, they're probably getting 30 to 50 inches high growth. So they really kick in, start the second year. This right here was something I was really proud of. The ones we planted there, 94% lived that year. That's way higher than we usually have. That wasn't up there like the 6 guys, or the 9 guys that had 6 seeds, you know, but that was up there. These replants, 83% of them lived. The guys I talked to in their nursery down by Little Rock, I said, how many, if you want to get 100 seedlings going, how many acorns you plant? He said 125 to 150, and usually 50% of them live. This is where they're fertilizing them, watering them, really taking care of them, you know, in good soil. All right, that was, we kind of talked about that a little. Right here's a big deal, deer damage. This year, we had a lot in this same plot. I would say roughly 1/3 of the trees are damaged from deer. I know some of the plots, there's no hunting this plot, but some of the plots are by hunting. I'm going to eat some of the deer in my plan later on, but not. You ain't going to get them all. We'll be breaking the law, plus, you know, okay, they're going to be stirring while I'm sleeping. Right here, I put a splint. You ever broke your leg, put a splint on it? I put a splint on the Chinquapin tree. That thing went up, went right straight back down. And it's fairly straight now. We left a few of these trees in here. This is kind of a west-southwest facing slope. Hot. Then these trees, give them a little shade. We may take them out later, but the first year, having a little shade might make or break you. Also, we'll mention it later on, your north, most all around here, your north and east slopes are your best hardwoods. You got less sun in there, you got the same soil type on the north and east slopes would outgrow a same soil type on the south and west slopes for hardwoods because they need water. And that'll up your production a little bit on your survivability of your tree. You look at all these, this was just in a couple of years. And now we started that plot in 2020. So we're on the 5th growing season. We've had 5 years of water, so they've been you can burn a lot of daylight trying to keep these 102 trees alive. I've talked to a guy one time that done studies in Pennsylvania. He said when they try to do any kind of experimental plot, they factor in the deer fence all the way around it because there's so many deer, they must really have them. He said you can't get no good readings because there's so many deer eating up your trees. But you got a lot of time in on your trees there, so you want to keep them alive. Replant 6 tubes. That's pretty good out of 102. I just have to replant 6. From redoing it for about 3 years, but now we're kind of getting down. There's not many. This plot the other day, there was 6. I don't have a slide on that, but in this growing season here, 6 trees died out of 102. And they wasn't all the new plants. Some of them from years past. It's kind of a bummer. I think probably the roots get down. I know somebody's going to talk about roots here later. They probably got something under the ground you can't see. They got down there and they died out. All right, that's Doug there. All right, we got a little drone there in Newton County. This is Michael here, one of the rangers there in Newton County, works with us. We make maps, we find Chinquapins with the drone. One guy that's got the current Arkansas state champion Chinquapin, he found a bunch with a drone. He got his own drone. When they're blooming, Sean that works with us ain't here. He can sniff them out. He's like a hound dog. He can actually track down Chinquapin with his nose. My snout didn't work too good, but after the COVID, it seemed like it works even less. But anyway, but the site, if you're out there when they're blooming, they'll stick out. There's hardly nothing blooming at that time. These are late bloomers. You can about write on your calendar, most trees bloom May 15th down there in our area. May 15th, get your drone out. I found a tree here a couple years ago. I drove by there thousands of times. I drove by there around May 15th. There's a big Chinquapin right outside the highway. But also, like I say, you could sniff them out maybe. Probably train a hound dog to find them. This is the kind of deal, this map he makes. And like that tube right there, you can see it's got the info on the tube, what year's planted and everything. You see, this was their last planting to get the 102 tubes in it. I know you can't read it. Right up there at the top is tube number 102. But this right here, right by this wood line, this one row of trees right here is significantly smaller than these out here in the open. Because north's going up the top there, but that's shading a lot in the morning. On up in the day, it's getting more sun, but these right here trees, right along this deal, is probably about half the size of these right out here in the open area. This is about how most of our trees look after about 3 growing seasons. When they get above that tube, they start spreading out. We did have a tree, of the ones I've dealt with, I think Steve said he's seen it before, it was 2.5 years old. It made about 10 nuts. Usually they're older. Right here is telling you about the rain. I don't know if you got a raw station close to you. This one's in Newton County, but it's not too far from the Carroll County plot. a little over 32 inches of rain from April through October 19th, kind of the growing season. So that's above normal according to the weatherman. No days over 100 degrees. We usually have a few over 100 every year. Next year, the rain's about the same, about 30, rounded off to 32 inches. 15 days over 100 degrees. First freeze, October 18th. A lot of our spots got, the last few days, got frost. So it's pretty common about the 15th to 20th. If you're up to higher elevations, you know, it still hadn't frosted yet, especially not a killing frost. All right, this is this year's weather. A little over 21 inches. We're down about nearly 11 inches. That's pretty significant a bunch. I didn't count the days over 100, but it had been a lot. Now this is this weather station in Newton County, Arkansas, a little bit south of here. So if you're losing 10, 11 inches of rain, that's a lot. And the way it's spaced out, it was tough. I think probably done more to water this year we have since we got them plots started in 2020. And so far, October, 0 on the scale so far. June, what really hurts you if it's really dry early, I think that's the worst. Getting off to a good start on anything is really important. If you'd put those out there, like I'd say this year, we used to get reports around the state, not on Chinquapin, just trees in general, about plantings, government plantings usually. A real dry year, you see 5 to 10% survival. He's way down there. A real wet year, you could about lay a seedling on the top of the ground, it might make it, but normally not. See, there's a median height that year of 22 inches, so that was real good. Right here, see that on this plot here, one tube came out with 48-inch, one tree came out with 48-inch tube the first year. That's not real common, but we was real proud of that. And I think it died a couple of years later. The growing tree we got, so who knows? All right, in this Carroll County plot, we've got 6 trees. We didn't water any. And the guys watered like, oh good, that's 6 we got to mess with. They grew slower, but this right here is 9 inches tall. It's planted this year. Still kicking. I was really kind of surprised it made it. And this, like I say, it's a west-southwest facing slope. Look at these others. 51 inches, 48, 48, 79, 48. No water. So Steve's got a good idea. I know the genetic folks will probably get a better idea of what trees can take the drought. And that's going to be, I think after blight resistance, that's going to be really up there. I really think in the future, I talked to Steve about this before, the number one way to get new members is to go for hunters. Hunters will spend their last nickel trying to get the edge on somebody else. And like that one buck he showed, that'd be a big draw point there. I said, oh yeah, you grow one like that in a year or two. But anyway, the ones we deal with, even the non-hunters, they love wildlife. We used to have different workshops. If you have forestry only, if you feed them, maybe 10 or 15 people show up. If you have food and a wildlife biologist there, you get maybe 30 or 40 people. Wildlife up in North Arkansas where the trees grow slow. Wildlife's a big deal. So if you like critters, I told the guy the other day, go with oak, get rid of pines, get rid of cedars. You need oaks out there, spaced out oaks, do burning. But wildlife's really important. All right, right here's a different plot. This was planted, this has got second growing season. That thing's probably 9 foot or just a hair over in 2 growing seasons. The deer was eating these things up like bad. So we had a few extra tubes laying around. We went for a double decker. And it seemed to work out good. I did decide, I don't have a slide, but here a while back when it was so hot and dry, it was 103 degrees in this plot, out in the middle of the sun. In that tube was 134 degrees. And I thought, even water, or especially our new growth was going belly up. So we took the tubes off and made some cages. That helps, but we should have done it probably a little earlier. But I believe in tubes. You're extending your growing season in the front and in the back. It'd be a lot of trouble, but maybe in the heat of the summer, take the tube off, put your wire cage on, and put the tube back on. But that'd be up in your labor there. But anyway, I'm expecting in this plot 69 tubes, and Steve thought 6 of these come out of the double tubes.
Chris, you said that tube is 9 feet with all those together. Is that right?
No, the top of the tree there.
Oh, 9 feet.
The tubes are 4-foot tubes, but they're kind of slid into each other. The tube's probably 7 to 7.5 foot long.
Okay. Man, that's a big tube. I was thinking that we need to examine the necks on those deer where you're at. They're like a giraffe. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it.
This is in a deer hunting zone here, so some of them will not get me next year. Look at this. Woe is me. That was one of my 6. It started changing colors. I thought, oh no. And I think it's a goner. Sometimes there'll be a sprout coming out down lower. Another thing, a guy showed me, used to work in the orchards in Washington. He took his thumbnail and just scratched through the outer bark. On the inner bark, if it's green, it's still got some life in it. Sometimes I've called these desert mackerel and go back the next year, wait a minute, there's a tree growing there. But like I say, this was probably 8.5 feet tall, probably 8.5. But anyway, whatever you do, you know, I don't know how you get 100% survival. It's kind of a bummer. A lot of these have died. This is the second year on this plot of growing. And I hadn't done a final tally. When we have a tree die, I try to do an autopsy. I call it on the tree. What killed that thing? What happened? And we'll dig around and spend time and say, well, you're wasting time on a dead tree. But if I get like there's some green on down in there, I'm going to take my clippers and clip it off about where the green, you know, starts there. If you have a high sprout come off a tree, that's a weak spot. And it's apt to get broke off by wind later on. So normally if it's like, I got on my land a real crooked walnut, I may cut that off the ground, break off all the sprouts but the one. With all those roots already in the ground, that thing will grow like a gangbuster there. But this, if it's got any green in it at all, you know, might have some, might be gone. Went down quick. Now right here is about a 1-inch tree. When I first seen this, I couldn't believe it, because the first thing that the leaves was like an 1/8 inch long, like that big. That looks like a chinquapin. What happened, this right here thing, this little stem, it grew up about 6 inches tall, and then it died. When we do that autopsy, I'll make a note like 6 inches tall, died. But I'll put on here, sprouted back, 1 inch tall. And also, sometimes, some of this is on a steep hill. Steve and his daughter helped us plant on this the first year. We planted 30 seeds, I think, with them helping there. Then we went back another time and planted some more, and went back one more time and planted a few. But I put way more confidence in that right there, 1 inch tall one, way more than I would have planted a new seed next year. But anyway, the guy that, this next week, a guy down in central Arkansas, he's a tree farmer of the year. I'm going to talk about chinquapins a little bit at his tour. But he said that he had some tubes, he said they're dead. I got to examine, I found something about like this, I said they ain't all dead, they're like bonsai chinquapin, but they're not all dead. So anyway, I got hopes of that still making, even though it's going to be behind the curveball there. All right, I'm about done here. All right, I'd recommend, you don't have to do these things, but I'm just suggesting, plant in late March or early April. The later we plant, usually you got longer roots, you got more trouble planting, and you got more dying. Plant on north or east facing slopes. I haven't done that as much in the past, I'm going to do it more in the future is my plan. Go on the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation website. They got some real good drawings. Review that. That'll help out. Leave a few small shade, trees for shade. Maybe you might want to remove them later, maybe not. But for the first few years, use a tree shelter. I read people planting in cages. A mouse will get through most kind of wire. I don't believe there's no way. I'd like to plant some side by side sometime. My wire cage will never keep up with the tube. That protects it. It's got a mini greenhouse in that tube, but you might have to pull them off when that temperature gets so hot in there. Somewhere along the game, you're probably going to have to get them out of there. Those trees from last year that's above the tubes, they seem to be able to take the drought good, except that one didn't. But most all the ones that's above the tubes with leaves, if all the leaves was down in that tube in that 134-degree temperature, too much. And especially too much for the, you know, that year's planting. Use straw for mulch, well-drained soils. Plant on 25-foot space, and that's what we're going to these plots, 25 foot. Some of the first ones we done was on 20. Steve thought we ought to stretch that out. I think it's a good idea. Plant toward the top of the slope. Gene mentioned about they usually grow up on the mountains more. These things are tough, but if you can get on toward the top of the slope, you're going to add on to your growing season. You're going to less likely get frost damage. All right, there's our track me down if you wanna. If you live in Boone, Newton, or Carroll County, I'll probably come out and look in person. If you live in another county, I might just talk to you on the phone. But our bosses give us quite a bit of slack. If it's a Chinquapin, like today with all the fires going on, if I have to tear out of here, I was thinking, I might at least eat lunch before I have to go back to Arkansas. So far, all good. My phone buzzed while ago, and I said, I don't know. Is this guy showing me big deer he killed? I thought, well, good, I can go ahead and stay close. But if the fire bell goes off, I'll probably be headed south. But anyway, I'm going to be around here until the fire bell goes off or it ends. And if you got any questions, I'll talk to you later.
Did you mulch all the trees you didn't water?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so that's one of the ways that you make that work for you.
We did. No water, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question for you and also I think for Dr. Edwards. For regular people that are growing 5, 6 nuts, would you recommend putting them in the ground at the beginning or putting them in an air pot, growing them through the first growing season and then planting them when they're dormant so that you've got a second-year tree established for the growing season?
It seems to me, the pots that we got, Forest Keeling nurseries, they grow them. The ones in the seeds will outgrowing those Forest Keeling nursery trees by a lot. I'm going to say and put the seed in the ground from what I've seen from Forest Keeling trees. I don't know, some people may have different ideas about potted trees, but I don't know the cost. That's $50 on a Forest Keeling tree.
Yeah, or more.
And we're giving you 5 or 6 seeds for $30, so I think you'll be way more excited. A guy that works with me and Doug, Sean, he's planted some of both, more of the seeds, but several of the Forest Keeling trees wasn't really performing like I thought they should. They wasn't nowhere close to the seeds. I'm knowing most things, probably a potted tree's better. I wouldn't go the potted tree route with my money.
To put this into perspective, we had, Andy Newhouse, you know him?
Yep.
He came out to our plots that we got up in Missouri, Carter County, and he said he couldn't believe the growth we had on the trees. He said on American chestnuts, if you would fertilize them and water them real good and baby them, they may be able to come close to the growth that we've got on these rugged places where they're getting either very little water or no watering whatsoever from us. So there's a difference that's a difference right there, and he's seen them both. He was amazed. I said, can you say that again? I don't know if you remember when I asked him to say that again up there. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. The RPM trees are good. They'll take off good. The good thing about RPMs is they will grow where you've got a lot of clay, and ordinarily an Ozark Chinquapin would not grow. So like with different places, we've been able to do that and get those genetics out, especially if it's a place where it's like a visitor center though. So
yeah, what I'm thinking though is that if you got a lot of people that are not getting any success with the trees, if they grew them in the pots in the first year, they would almost certainly get more trees alive, although they wouldn't get that much growth.
yeah,
Just a thought that I had.
that's a big issue, especially in a remote place. Yeah, good question.
I mean, we're growing them in pots, and I feel like they're pretty picky.
I didn't hear that.
Like,
I can't hear that
they don't
either.
want much water, we have to, we were watering once a week and we have to space it out. Because they were scrambling a little funky. We had to fertilize them because they're not doing as well as everything else that we're working on. So, but they're still growing, but it's taken a lot of time on there to grow them in pots.
He's got a microphone up there.
Actually, I don't have it.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
I have noticed too down where we're at, we got the elk down there around where I live. The elk can sniff out the fertilized trees. They'll be browsed way harder than just a regular tree. So you get more browse, the elk can reach pretty high too. So anyway, some things you might get help and you might hurt some other part. Somebody else have a question?
Yeah, this is maybe a question for both of you. Steve, you had mentioned earlier something about some of them are more tree-like and some of them more bush-like. Well, I have a couple of trees that have taken off this year quite a bit, thank goodness, but a lot of them are still bushes. But I took my tubes off early because it seemed like that was just totally stunting them and the trees were dying in the tubes. So I took them off and I put fences around them and I kept them that way. My question question is, should I trim? I have some pictures where I have some nuts up on the top branches, but the slow stuff, my wife's always like, cut those low things off. And I just worry that maybe wouldn't cut them at the right time of the year. So if we trim them, since I haven't had them in the tube now with these low branches, when should I trim?
Really good question. And so here's a couple things to pass on to you. And what he's bringing up is a really good thing. There's a friend of mine in Oklahoma and in Adair County, and he's got Chinquapins growing. And he didn't use a tube on one of them. And, you know, the deer love these. There's no tannic acid in the leaves. So they go after them more than they do the oaks or anything else. So he had seed that would make an Ozark Chinquapin tree. And I'm talking, this thing was like a bush from here to Chris Wyatt, and it was tall and big around. You couldn't get under it. And I said, yeah, the deer every time the deer eats off one of your branches or the terminal bud, you're going to get more, you know, times like 10 of these sprouts. And he hadn't done anything to it. It looked like it needed a real bad haircut. It was bad. But the deer were coming there, but you couldn't even get under that. So here's what you need to do. If you have any kind of damage from deer, the grow tube will protect it. It's like a double-edged sword. At the same time, they can be crowded. I wish those grow tubes were that big around, is what I wish. We've actually experimented some with that. And to answer your question, though, yes, you need to go back in. This sounds bad, but go back in the early spring of the year, as soon as you start seeing leaf growth. And you need to go in, you need to cut all those off that the deer are eating or whatever. Find your main stem, and then cut all the rest of them off and spray them with rubberized undercoating or some kind of spray, you know, for pruning fruit trees, that sort of thing. And then it'll try to resprout 2 times on those. You'll see fresh green sprouts come, break them off, respray it again, and then it'll eventually give up and throw all its energy into that trunk, and it will shoot up.
Were
And
you
so-
asking about multiple trunks or just the low branches because you made a
Well,
cage?
I have both situations.
Okay.
So some of them are more like a lilac bush, and some of them
Yeah, I'm
are more
coming
like
up
a
to that
tree
one
with
too.
Okay.
So,
an apple tree
so when you
on
plant a
sides.
tree out in the open, and I'm telling you what I've seen. I planted these out in the open, and people would not believe this, but from like here, literally to you, you'll see branches on the Chinquapin that may be only about 8 or 10 inches diameter. And so as the tree grows taller, you know, and other trees shade it out, these lower branches will start dying. See, I've got to get under those at work and everything. So I just go ahead and cut them in the spring of the year like I described, because you have more weeks of grow time from the heel over. So, you know, like as soon as they start putting on leaves, you know, when they're small leaves, cut them, and I just trim it up and spray it, you know, so you don't have an open wound for the blight to get in there. But they're pretty rugged. It's hard to find a branch this year that missed all the cicadas in Missouri. They're all eating, some of them all the way down the lengths of them, and they healed over and didn't get blight. So to answer your question though, so I've got to be able to walk under them, so I just trim them all the way up and spray them. And so that's what I do. Out in the wild, you wouldn't do that. You know, you love to do their thing. And we had one tree, I think, that was 18 inches that Tyler Campbell found, and it was just straight as a telephone pole, way up in the upper canopy. We had a branch that broke off, and I estimated before that branch broke, that tree was 71 feet tall. And so, you know, they'll adapt to whatever it is, but if you plant it out in the open, you know, you're going to get branches all the way down. As time goes on, since we're managing them, you know, trim those off in the spring of the year and spray them, and it'll throw all its energy into that trunk. You know, you need to cut all those sprouts, but that's
Okay.
what you need to do.
So I also had a question. I haven't had a lot of deer eating the leaves. I mean, they'll nibble some of them since I'm just got metal cages around them. But have you found that the deer, the bucks will rub these preferentially because they just rip up the cedar trees? No, excuse me, they rip up the pine trees, but they don't touch cedar trees. They'll, you know, scrape my serviceberry, but they won't do hawthorn. Is this one that attracts the bucks to rub them? Because I'm leery about taking the tubes off the ones. And I've actually, there's some other trees that I put tubes back on that aren't Chinquapin to keep the deer from rubbing them.
So make sure I'm clear, you're talking about the bucks actually rubbing your trees. Yeah.
Using them straight.
Yeah, well, welcome to the world of Chinquapin trees. So if you're a hunter, you know that the deer like rubbing their antlers on cedar, just like you said. They'll do this. They'll destroy a grove of pine trees, doing the same thing. And they also love sassafras, and they also love, I found out, Ozark Chinquapins. So here's the way I got around it. If you can take that grow tube, once once it outgrows it, and just leave it there with a rebar, or even move the rebar over. As long as it's in real close proximity to that trunk, they won't rub their antlers on it. Or something in their head says, don't rub this. But if you don't, I mean, they will tear them completely up, you know. And I know it's tough to do, somebody's got to do that job, but some of us go out and try to actually, you know, keep these big bucks off of these trees. It's a tough job to do, but, no, still. But yeah, they will do that. That's another one they love. So it goes cedar, pines, sassafras, then Ozark Chinquapin trees. That's something we did not know before, and you found out.
Another thing too, they mentioned this tree said about 70 foot tall. That was the biggest I've seen in modern days. When I was a kid, I think I seen something like 2 foot diameter. But we had a news article, Huntsville, Madison County down around Huntsville, 5 foot diameter back in the 40s, late 40s. I think in Georgia they had some Chinquapin trees, 8 foot diameter. Well, these wasn't just a little runny tree, maybe a little bit shorter than, you know, some are taller trees, but big diameters. They're not all, people just used to seeing little head-high things, you know, they've got it all wrong, thinking that's what a Chinquapin is. Those aren't Chinquapin.
And folks, we're running over on time a little bit, and they got food ready for us out there. But before we do this, though, Tim, did you have one more person